As we enter the Four Nations break, the Calgary Flames find themselves at a crossroads. Jess Belmosto of Locked On Flames is going to talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Flames, Jess Belmosto. And Jess, a little disappointing end to the last few games before the Four Nations break. Is Dustin Wolf getting a little tired? Is that part of the problem, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think that has a lot to do with it. He hasn't obviously played at the NHL level before to this extent. And they have been riding him hard, and I don't want to say taking advantage of him because that's absurd. He's doing his job, but they're pushing him, and that's the only way you're going to get better and figure out, what is the threshold. And he has historically played better at home this season, and unfortunately, it just kind of did not play out that way over these last few games. And I mean, it's a long season. He's young. He has horrendous defense in front of him. So he has to do a lot of the work. And it's not easy.
No, it is not. Any other things that you think contributed to the losing streak right before Four Nations?
Gosh, I think the lack of scoring obviously plays a big part of that. But the defense is it's not good. They had Joel Hanley, who is a 6th or 7th defenseman, playing on the top pairing with Rasmus Anderson. Not great. Miramonov, who was typically played with Uyghur, is not a top 4 pairing defenseman, and they are just trying to plug holes, and it's not working.
Yeah, no, never easy, especially at this point in the season, to try to have guys step up a couple of notches above where they usually play. Now, the Flames did pull off a big trade with Philadelphia recently. How are the new guys doing since their acquisition? How are they fitting in, and are they meeting expectations in this small sample size?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for the amount of games they've played in the short 10 days it's been, they've adjusted pretty well. Morgan Frost had a goal last night against the Kraken, and Farabee had the assist on that. They've both obviously scored. I think it's going well. Ryan Huska is not known for keeping lines together very long. So, I think it's a great way for them to try to build chemistry, but at the same time, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to see what truly works and what doesn't work if you're always in a blender.
Do these two players, do you think Frost and Farabee help? The Flames are near the bottom in goals scored in the league. Is this an attempt, in your opinion, to boost that number?
Yes, I would have to say so. I think both of them really needed the change of scenery based on what I've read and people I've talked to in the Philadelphia scene. So I think that, it's definitely beneficial for them in that aspect. And I mean, I don't want to say they've gotten off to a red hot start, but they haven't really missed a beat since arriving. And I think that that's, a great thing for them, but also the team that is dead last at even strength scoring. So
Who do you think benefits most from these acquisitions?
In terms of like the Flames versus the Flyers,
Well,
or
in terms of which Flames players do you
oh,
think
which
will benefit
okay.
from the trade?
I think really any of the middle six players, I think will definitely um see. I think Backlund needs to take a step back a little bit, let some young blood in. 36 years old, time to kind of, get some fresh legs out there and have someone younger like Morgan Frost come in and step in at center. And he has a lot of great players to learn from, like Backlund, like Kadri. And I think, having a great winger as well for, when Connor Zary comes back from injury, I think will definitely be great. And Joel Farabee.
Trade deadline is now less than a month away. Already, the big trade with Philly. You think the Flames are done yet? And how do you think they're going to approach the trade deadline? Because they're still right in contention, but are they expected to make the playoffs? Is that part of the, how desperate are they to make the postseason?
I really think that they are going to try to execute squeaking in to the playoffs. However, I think that this 6-game road trip they have right after the Four Nations break, that's make or break time for them. I think that is the point where this season is going to either go in the direction of, hey, we're making that playoff run, or okay, we're heading back in the direction where we should have been all season long, bottom of the barrel. I think they could potentially make some trades. I don't necessarily think they're going to be needle movers for this immediate effect. I don't think that it's hey, like we're going after this immediate impact guy. But it could be a player like Morgan Geekie, 26-year-old center, who is an RFA, I believe, at the end of this season. So he, could potentially have some team control there. His wife's from Calgary, so that could be, a little incentive to sign or to stay, whatever the case may be. But I think ultimately it's going to depend on who's available and at what cost.
So, I mean, I would assume offense is still a primary need. Like, you say it's not going to be like a big needle mover. So, what type you talking about? A middle six kind of a forward?
Yeah, more of what they already have. That unfortunately seems to be the approach for the Flames. But I think that, yeah, it's going to be a middle six or someone they think they can push to the top six.
And if, let's say, over this 6-game road trip, they go, they struggle and they don't do well, who might become available, or do they just stand pat?
I don't think they're moving anyone. I think it would make sense to move Rasmus Andersson from a draft capital perspective, and I don't think you want to lock him up necessarily long term, but Craig Conroy is steering this ship, so who knows? But I think that if they do move anyone, it's going to likely be, the Jake Beans, the Joel Hanleys, maybe Braden Pahal. It just it'll be a depth move for whoever's trading for them.
So what do you think this team should do as of right now?
Go on a losing streak. It does not make sense especially after the way they lost the game against the Kraken, just late in the third period, just having it completely unravel in front of them. This team is not currently built for the playoffs. They don't have the consistent scoring. They don't have someone that you can count on to really break open a game. And Connor Zary and Matt Coronado are probably about as close as you're getting to that at the moment. And no disrespect to them, they're still young. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket with that, especially first year in a rebuild, retool, transitional period. I think that they need to keep working, drafting that high-end talent or figuring out ways to acquire that high-end talent.
Well, we will see what they do. It's going to be an interesting next month or so. Jess, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find Locked On Flames wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, as well as YouTube. Just search Locked On Flames. And you can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto.
All right, Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you could place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.